war on drugs largely has been waged against Black Americans and communities of color, and it has produced the largest prison population on the face of the planet, one disproportionately comprised of Black and brown people. And now, at a time that marijuana is legal in one form or another in more than half the states of the union, it is very hard for the formerly incarcerated, those who have been prosecuted in the war on drugs, to be able to earn a living on the very issue for which they were punished. Meanwhile, as has been the case for time immemorial, the last 400 years in this country, white men primarily have an easier job of finding the investment capital, the legal pathway, and the means to profit off now the legal sale of cannabis in this country. And so I think Kamala understands that in addition to ending the war on drugs, you also have to look at restorative justice for those who've been unfairly prosecuted in that war on drugs. And part of that means access to the opportunities now in a legal marketplace for cannabis. Isn't it just for those who bore the brunt of this to have an opportunity to actually make a living going forward, if that's what they should choose to pursue? So we've talked about the history of the prohibition of cannabis, which really begins in El Paso, Texas, where I'm talking to you from right now, more than 100 years ago. And cannabis was associated with Mexican nationals, Mexican Americans, and Mexican immigrants. And in an effort to keep them down, legally, politically, economically, the outlaw of cannabis and the ability to prosecute these new immigrants in some cases became part of the policy here in the city of El Paso, and was picked up throughout the Mountain West. It then extended to trying to further control Black Americans in communities like New Orleans, New York City, and marijuana became very much associated with communities of color through the eyes of the law. And so you get to modern policing, which some have compared to the new Jim Crow in its connection to the war on drugs and keeping communities of color down by law. And you begin to understand, how law enforcement has been used as a tool of institutional racism and oppression and suppression of opportunity in Black communities and in communities of color. And so to your point on George Floyd, that white officer kneeling on George Floyd's throat, and he was watching us. He knew he was being filmed by that cell phone camera, and he's looking right into it without any care whatsoever, because he knows he can do this. He's saying to us in his gaze, he says, I can do this because I'm white and this man is Black. There is nothing more for you to know. And I think that is the issue with which we are contending right now. And my gratitude to everyone who has taken to the streets and marched in the tradition of John Lewis and Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. and so many of our civil rights heroes, who understood that in addition to the ballot box and voting and registering and the traditional channels of power, that there's something more that needs to be done on critical issues and at critical moments like these. And it necessitates us taking to the streets. So I think we've got to look at other countries' experiences, as you're urging us to do, whether it's the Netherlands or Portugal or really any other place on the planet, or other states that are pioneering innovative public health responses to drug use and drug abuse and drug overdose deaths. So, Dean, you're really, again, pushing us to think beyond what's comfortable or convenient and to do instead what is right for this country. And I hope that's what we're able to do. There's no benefit to the drug war. I mean, it benefits bloated police budgets. It benefits the police industrial complex, the consultants who teach you how to do a no-knock warrant, break down a door, and dress in tactical military gear take on, we think about Breonna Taylor, who was killed through one of these no-knock warrants. And to date, Dean, no one's been arrested. No one's been prosecuted. No one's been convicted. No one's even been charged for her death. And she did literally nothing wrong. And is one of the most recent, but only the most recent, examples of the mortal consequences of this war on drugs. So it's not good for human life. It's not good for our democracy. It's not good for our fellow Americans. And so you follow the money and find out who is profiting from this. And I think you find your answers.
Good evening.